Fantastic. Welcome, guys, and thank you for your patience and bearing with us while we've had quite a number of technical difficulties this morning and afternoon. It was great seeing so many of you click attend, and we're hoping that you will all receive this, or at least a link to this webinar to help you answer the questions, and we appreciate all of your time this afternoon. From our side today, I'm Luke. I look after the commodity market coverage over at Signal Ocean. I am joined today by Maria, who is a senior market analyst at Signal Ocean, looking after our freight outlooks on both tanker and dry and shaping how we see the market, as well as Hugo, who is the VP of Data Partnerships over at AXS. We're going to try and keep things really focused and streamlined for you now, given the issues that we've had. We've decided to be as narrow-minded and focused on the content as we can be, to try and give you the real key messages and what we think you need to take away. This is obviously the landing screen, and on here we've summarized 3 things that we think have been really, really impactful so far. So the first is an almost complete decline in transits through the Strait of Hormuz. Our calculations put this between 90 and 95%. And what that translates into actual numbers is that we've seen a waypoint that typically sees well over 100, maybe close to 120 voyage transits a day. We've seen that drop to around about 3. So a huge decline. And as we said, an almost kind of 100% decline. And given the conflict, we've seen a massive war risk premium in the area of between 5 and 10%, which is a huge risk premium. Now, first to speak is Maria, and Maria will give an overview on how we've seen what's happened in the Strait of Hormuz, both on a vessel viewpoint, as well as on a kind of oil viewpoint as well. So without kind of keeping anyone waiting too much longer, Maria, would you like to jump in and take us through how you've seen the market?
Thank you, Luke. So let's start of how the shipping industry reached this crisis, because this time the disruption exceeds the playbook. The Strait of Hormuz cannot be rerouted. So what's happening is not a full closure. Ships can still pass, but not freely. Access now depends on ownership, flag, charter, and risk tolerance. And this week, that reality became sharper. Iran rejected the US peace plan and proposed its own, including a demand for formal recognition of Iranian control of the strait. Now we raised the critical reality. Let me explain how the market actually stopped, not at ports, not at sea, but in the insurance layer. Before a single tanker decided not to move, the insurance market had already moved, and that sequence matters a lot. Insights from Alexander Freeman and Hill Dickinson reflect exactly what we are seeing now. When risk escalates, the market doesn't disappear. It adapts under pressure. The Lloyd's Joint War Committee redesignated the Arabian Gulf as a conflict zone, and the response was immediate. Underwriters are still quoting, even for the transit through the strait, but on dire, highly conditional terms. So the system hasn't lost insurance, but it has lost certainty, and the marine insurance premiums have escalated. What was about 0.2 to 0.5% of hull value is now typically between 1 and 3%. For a modern VLCC vessel valued at around $138 million, that means roughly $1 to $4 million per voyage. So now you have a split. One side is focused on safety. The other is keeping the voyage moving. And we have seen this before in the Black Sea after the Ukraine invasion. These same tensions didn't stay theoretical. They slowed trade, delayed cargoes, and trigger disputes. This brings to the key point in today's picture. If we can show the previous slide look of what is actually moving and why. Um, so this brings to the strong reality of today about the Strait of Hormuz. We are now seeing 80 to 90% reduction in large vessel transits. And there's now a clear distinction between normal commercial transit, which has largely started, and coordinated relationship-based transit. Through the Larak Island corridor, vessels are moving under a different system within Iranian controlled waters with clearance linked to nationality and diplomatic alignment. Iran has communicated to the IMO that non-hostile vessels may transit. China, India, Russia, Iraq, and Pakistan currently have identifiable access pathways. This is not a reopening of the strait, it's a controlled access, selectively granted. There is no transparency, and Iran has publicly denied the existence of a formal toll regime. So, what the numbers look like, and this now comes to our next slide. Look, please, if you can show our next one. Is the data as of today about the oil system. So transit activity remains elevated. More than 400 tankers remain in the region. The floating storage is also in increase with around 70 VLCCs and about 30 more other crude tankers. And around 80% of the VLCC fleet now will not operate on the Arabian Gulf to China route. Not because they cannot find cargo, because they cannot get insurance coverage at workable economics, or because their operations have made a fleet safety decision independent on cargo opportunity. The US government announced a 20 billion insurance support program to help ships get coverage, but this also shows how serious the situation is as of today. We estimate roughly 130 million barrels of crude frozen in place, and there's a tail risk that I want to name here and is not getting enough attention. If these disruptions extends beyond 45 days, which is our baseline window, we start entering territory where cold layup of vessels trapped in the region becomes a serious discussion. And the industry has never had to plan for that scenario at this fleet scale. And now we come to the freight market and what the dislocation looks like. In the dirty freight market, the Atlantic basin is now carrying the weight of displaced demand. US Gulf to China route has firmed significantly. Charters have moved from treating US crude as a marginal alternative to treating as a primary supply anchor. DT3 rates look elevated, but they are disconnected from the actual fixed volume. So it seems that current levels are driven by risk pricing, constraint, and a shortage of willing tonnage. What does this mean? Is that we don't have underlying cargo demand. So when the insurance market and security picture shift, even partially, the market will begin to correct. What today's key development means for shipping. Recent announcement from Iran is the clearest framework we have seen since the war began, and it effectively splits the market into two. On the one side, vessels linked to China, India, Russia, Iraq, and Pakistan now have a defined path to transit. On the other side, everyone else is still facing the same uncertainty, high insurance costs, case by case approvals, and no clear or transparent process. China is especially important here because it is Iran's largest trading partner and has strong initiatives to push more for stable flows. And now we are on the critical question where we are now. From the start, we outlined multiple scenarios for how this could develop. Today, reality sits between two of them. The one says limited naval support to keep some cargo flows moving, and the other selective access for Southeast Asian nations. Both are now happening at the same time. We are now at day 28 of a roughly 40 to 45-day window. The next 2 weeks are critical. Either this limited access expands and more cargo starts to move, or the situation stays blocked and risk increase further. And let me close with the final point is that for sure this disruption cannot be rerouted. It's a disruption that the system has no substitute. As of today, the strait is effectively accessible to a limited group of countries under Iranian control condition, and this could be the emergence of a new operating structure of the strait. So, until three elements aligned, predictable insurance, manageable legal risk, and broader transparent access, the system will continue to function below capacity.
Amazing. Thank you, Maria. And I think what I found interesting there was how close we're coming to that precipice of the 45 days that you mentioned, and the inflationary pressure that the world is kind of coming under. And I think when we move over to what Hugo is going to talk to us about, he's looking at the kind of knock-on effects of what the blockage in the Strait of Hormuz will have on, to say, commodity flows, and how the restriction of those certain commodity flows again adds to the inflationary pressure that we're going to be seeing and experiencing. So before I keep you too long, I'd like to pass you over to Hugo. Hugo, please take the floor.
Yes, thanks. Very good presentation, Maria, and thanks a lot, Hugh. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to share some insight, which we can derive out of our data, share that to the customers, and we also those days have a lot of inquiries from the media. I like to point out that those insights that we derive and present is actually the fruit of the hard work of a lot of our colleagues, which are doing a fantastic job, especially answering all questions from customers on the ongoing situation. And last but not least, I like to share that we are greater together. What I mean by that is that 2 months ago, Access Marine and Signal, we were two separate companies trying each other to show the other we were better, and now we are all together, hand in hand, and sharing insights. And we can already feel it makes us strongest, and having better insight on the market. So no, let's get back to the topic. So why did we pick fertilizer specifically? So as a group of commodities, this is one that has a real global impact, and this trade disruption, as it has been pointed out, is clear. There are hardly any cargo flowing. It stresses a lot the fertilizer chain, and down the line, it has a clear impact on the food safety, food security. If you look at the graph you've got or at the slide, so you can see, in fact, it represents the key nutrients partly. So the key nutrients, in fact, to grow vegetable, plants, and agri-products, it's NPK. So if you check for fertilizer, even home, and you check, you'll find those letters with percentages. What do they mean? It's very simple. N stands for nitrogen. So here you go down slide, it's urea and ammonia. P stands for phosphate. So also on the slide on the right, this is diammonium phosphate and monoammonium phosphate, which are two of those key fertilizers. And the K is for potash. You don't see potash here, but that's on purpose. There is no potash heading out of the Gulf. However, one you see, which I haven't mentioned, is sulfur. Is sulfur a fertilizer? The answer is no. Why do we have sulfur there? It's simple. Sulfur is clearly used to produce sulfuric acid out of it. And then you use this sulfuric acid, you break the phosphate rocks and you extract the phosphate out of it. And then therefore you can start producing phosphorus fertilizers. So when 50% of the global seaborne supply is stuck, cannot get out, that has a big impact. That has a clear big impact. So it's UAE, Qatar, Saudi, Kuwait, all of them are exporting sulfur. They can't. The vessels are stuck. The key buyer, obviously, is the largest phosphate buyer in the world. Sorry, supplier in the world. So it's OCP. So OCP are importing this sulfur in Jorf, in Morocco. And now, obviously, they are going to struggle to have enough sulfur to produce as much as they wish. So it's going to impact on the line the phosphate market. And another interesting story, also still related to sulfur, is Indonesia as a country is the largest importer of sulfur from the Gulf. And in Indonesia, what's very interesting is that there are two industries competing for this sulfur. They both produce sulfuric acid, but for different reasons. So one, the fertilizer industry, we just mentioned it, but the other actually is to extract the cobalt and the nickel out of the ore to then being able to deliver these metals to produce batteries. So those two industries are competing in Indonesia. That drives the price up, obviously. We are 20, 30%. It's not a liquid market, so it's not transparent neither. So that has a clear impact, and it's not only Indonesia, it's global. It's global. And when I mean global, one of the key players is also China, and China is importing 2.4 million tons of sulfur, and they have similar struggle. And they worry about being able to produce enough phosphate, so they are cutting export on phosphate. But just one more word on sulfur as well. You can see here we see 28 vessels in average a month over the last 48 months. So that gives you an idea of the normal traffic. On the right, you see the about normal traffic. There isn't really a seasonality. And now, how many vessels have we seen since the beginning of the conflict? We've seen one and a second one, which we are pretty sure it is, but we want to double check. So to continue on the story of China, what China are doing is simple. They're kindly inviting their local supplier to stop exporting phosphate. Why? Because if you don't get enough sulfur, you don't get enough sulfuric acid, you may not produce as much phosphate as you wish. And therefore, you want to keep it local on your local market to avoid price inflation. So Luke and Maria were mentioning inflation. That's a clear case of how you can control it. But that's a snowball effect. So then China is not exporting more phosphate. From the Gulf, you can see it on the slide, 13% of the overall global phosphate is getting out of the Gulf. So that takes already, that has a big impact on the market. Our phosphate from the Gulf is mainly Saudis export. It's actually a Ma'adin story. And in terms of import, the largest impacted country is India, with 2.75 million tons. They're from far the largest one impacted. And on top of it, they had they had a long-term contract, at least for importing diammonium phosphate. meaning that they felt secured on the procurement side. So that's a change for India. And again, to give you an idea on phosphate, usually normal time we saw about 9 vessels in average passing through the strait a month, and now we are down to we've spotted one. We spotted one, so it's not much. It's not much. And if we so now if we keep talking about India, India is also very much impacted because they are also the largest importer of ammonia from the Gulf with 1.3 million tons. Ammonia so it's very much subject to price increase due to the fact that it's produced from natural gas. So at the moment, you've got the gas price that increases, ammonia increases straight away. So that's putting pressure on it. Also, an additional importer is South Korea. And in South Korea, it's interesting because we again have two reasons to compete to get the ammonia. Is that in South Korea, it's not the ratio of overall 70% of ammonia is used for fertilizer. We've got a different one in South Korea because they use part of the ammonia to produce energy. So we are more at 50%. So therefore, they compete for the ammonia. So that also helps getting a strong demand and keeps getting the price going up. In terms of the supply, it's an easy one. It's going to be easy to calculate the ratio. We've seen 0 vessel going through. So whereas we usually a month see a bit more than 10 vessels in average. So the impact here is very clear on the global market, and the price increase are global. And so still linked to nitrogen. So you're gonna to produce urea using ammonia, and again, one of the largest exporter or the largest exporter is India with more than 2 million tons. So India, you can hear they are getting hit by not getting enough phosphate. They are getting hit by not getting enough ammonia nor urea, and on top of it, you also, of course, add the LNG that they import then to transform it into natural gas again and produce ammonia as well from it. So they are getting hit on from all of the angles. On urea, what gets exported from the Gulf, it represents 25% of the global seaborne volume. This is big. The price signal are very clear. You could read article easily. It's plus 30%, 35, 40% in terms of price. This has a clear impact on any farmer. It means today any farmer, you've heard the price increase on phosphate. It's on sulfur that is used to produce phosphate. It's on ammonia. It's on urea. So that is hurting the farming industry. And in terms of volume, I always like to look at we are tracking vessels, so it's always nice looking at that. In terms of volume, it's 25 vessels a month or so that we see passing by, and we've seen one, and we think there is a second one. Now, I've mentioned how many pass through. It doesn't mean vessels are not loading. There are laden vessels of sulfur, of urea, of phosphate ready to sail through, but so far they don't dare sailing through. So yeah, so that's the picture I wanted to share, so that at least Luke was saying that really sticking to the facts, and that's the chance we have of being able to deliver this true picture because we follow up on the vessels. We see truly what's going on. We are not spreading noise. We deliver the clear picture, and the clear picture is that there are hardly any vessels sailing at all. This is having a clear impact, and there is no enough supply. The price of fertilizer increases, and the one getting badly impacted are the farmers. So we all hope that this crisis will not last long.
Thank you, Hugo. That's really insightful there, and it's been really interesting to see how concentrated the fertilizer market was in the Gulf, and something that I wasn't really aware of before. And where you mentioned nitrogen say I have read recently and written a few reports on how certain crops are much more dependent on nitrogen-rich fertilizers than others, and it'll be interesting to see if we kind of see farmers and the agricultural market try to adjust to accommodate these sorts of things. Now, we are running out of time, but we just wanted to share with you this on screen. This is our risk outlook and our key takeaways from today's session. We've covered most of these topics. Maria covered the majority of them when she was talking about freight and the oil market in particular. But I think we may have time for a question for Hugo and for Maria. If you could both kind of maybe keep your answers to within a couple of minutes, that would be fantastic. My first will go to you, Maria. We've seen nations try to adapt and become as flexible and resilient and change maybe where they source materials, particularly gas, from. I think I read that Italy is now trying to source LNG from Algeria. Do you think that these adaptations are here to stay, or do you think as soon as we see a resolution in the Strait of Hormuz that things will go back to the way they have been? Oh, you're on mute, Maria. Sorry.
That's the right question, because what we are seeing is just isn't just a disruption. We have seen Meloni flying to Algeria to replace Qatar LNG, Japan sending naval escorts with India for LPG transits, Sinopec wrapping Bahai base oil production, Saudi Arabia pushing Red Sea crude exports up to 5 million barrels per day. It's very critical here to mention that the East-West pipeline volume that was never intended for self-sustained use at that scale. For years, everything was built around Gulf to Asia flows, very predictable, very efficient. What's happening now is a rebalancing. The Atlantic basin is gaining weight, undeniable. We have one more dimension on the sanctions. The US is discussing lifting Iranian sanctions to release roughly 140 million barrels of Iranian oil, while Iran publicly downplays or disputes the scale of that floating supply. So, to your question, is something bigger changing? Yes, I think that we are watching the first forced decoupling of the global energy system from its Gulf dependency. Not because in one planet, but because the insurance market, the physical security environment, and the geopolitics all moved simultaneously and left no alternative. The Atlantic undeniably is gaining weight. The marine insurance architecture is being rebuilt from scratch. And the uncertainty doesn't end when the strait reopens, because the habits that form during this disruption, the alternative suppliers, the bilateral escort arrangements, the insurance frameworks, these do not disappear immediately when the crisis does.
Amazing. Thank you, Maria. And to you, Hugo, if you could keep it maybe within a minute or two. You mentioned that potash flows from the Middle East haven't been affected, and I know potash isn't particularly affected by the Strait of Hormuz. I think it goes from all of the Levant area and into the Mediterranean. But if potash hasn't been disrupted, is potash a viable substitute for the other nutrients that have been affected and aren't able to flow out the Gulf? Can you substitute that for potash?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So yeah, just to precise, so in the area in Middle East there is potash, but indeed is not getting from the strait. Is getting out of the Red Sea side from Jordan, from Aqaba. It's Jordan Arab Potash actually, which is the main exporter. And back to the question, it will be nice if it was interchangeable. The reality is that it isn't. Each nutrient bring what is needed for the agri product to grow. So obviously each different agri product and depending on the soil needs different fertilizers, possibly also different nutrients. But overall, you cannot interchange them, meaning that the volumes that can't get out through the strait those days is having a clear impact on the market, and there is no option B. Same message than what Maria just shared overall.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. And for you guys watching and listening, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our views today. We have on screen some links if you would like to reach out to our research team for any questions around that, or if you would like a trial or some more info, maybe a demo of the platform that we use to obviously create the charts that we've shared with you today, please do follow those links to our email addresses. If our research that we currently write is of more interest to you, there's a QR code there for you to scan, and that will take you to our newsroom where we publish our weekly and our monthly reports. But from all of us today, we appreciate your time and thank you, and enjoy your weekend, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.